Hello everyone, my name's Helen Dornham. I'm currently Chair of the Standing Committee on Farm Management, the IDF Standing Committee. And on behalf of the Standing Committee and the International Dairy Federation, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the first of our Dairy Farmer Roundtable webinars for 2021, sorry, just lost 20 years there. We had several of these roundtables in 2020, and if any of you missed seeing those, on the invitation that you would have got to this one, there is a ability to click in and review and watch those videos. Just to also let you know that we are recording this one, so that again it will be available for those people who can't come tonight. It's really great to see so many people coming in on this webinar. It's obvious that you all got a great interest in listening to what our panelists have got to say. The aim of the IDF Dairy Farmer Roundtables is to connect global dairy farmers with other global dairy farmers. While we started with face-to-face workshops going back a while in association with the World Dairy Summit, COVID did put a bit of a stop to that, and so we moved to virtual meetings last year. The good news of COVID, I guess, is that it's actually enabled us to have many more people join us for these online meetings. So welcome again. We've invited 4 global dairy farmers to give us a quick virtual tour of their farm and then talk to us about some of the challenges and opportunities that they're facing. The way we'll run tonight's meeting is that I'll introduce each of the panelists as we go, and then we'll view their video. And if participants could turn their videos off once we start, or the cameras off, it just might help ensure that we all get a good experience watching the virtual tours, just to make sure we've got sufficient bandwidth. If you, after the video, we'll then have each of the panelists talk a little bit about the challenges, etc. And then at the end of all the panelists, we'll go to a general question and answer. Given that we've now got over 60 participants on, if you have questions, please can you just type them into the chat box and we'll monitor those, and we'll make sure we can get to as many as possible. However, if we do miss your question, please be assured that we'll make sure that if they're addressed to a particular panelist, that we'll send them on to the panelists, or we'll try to get back to you with an answer to your question. So that's probably more than enough to hear from me, that you haven't come to this webinar to listen to me. And I'd now like to introduce our panelists. Our first farmer that we're going to hear from is Stephen Rosen. So Stephen is from Israel. He was born in New York and came to Israel in 1972 to help found a kibbutz on the Golan Heights, where he's been living since as a founding member. After his army service, he began working on the kibbutz's 350-cow dairy herd, and after 2 years became the manager, managing it for 4 years, went to college to study dairying, and then returned to manage the herd for 2 more years. And in 1988, he was asked to join the Ministry of Agriculture as a dairy extension agent for the north of Israel. His role has been in nutrition, management and farm economy. He retired a year ago from the government job and now works for a private company and does pretty much the same job as he said. He's married to Naomi with 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Stephen also had to overcome a fair bit of difficulty in doing his filming, given where we all are with lockdown and the ability to have people come in. So he kindly filmed himself with his mobile phone to give us a virtual tour. So I'm going to now move to the tour of Stephen's farm, and then we'll have Stephen answer some questions. So thanks, Fatima, if you could play the video.
Hello, this is Stephen Rosen on the Kibbutz Kfar Charuv dairy farm in the Golan Heights in Israel. This farm is a kibbutz farm, a communal farm of the entire kibbutz. We have about 440 milking cows, plus about 420 heifers, and another 200 or so bulls for fattening. We produce about 4.8 million liters a year on a milk quota of about 4.3 million liters. We, of course, feed our own food in our own feed center. The entire quota in Israel is about 1.6 million tons of milk per year. It's a planned farm, planned industry with strict milk quotas and a milk price set by the government. The milk production in Israel, the average is the highest in the world, about 12,000 kilograms of milk average per cow per year, with 3.87% fat average and 3.3% protein average. All the farms in Israel, including this, are very automated. So as you can see, each cow has a tag either on its leg or on its neck. As you can see, the tags. Automatic identification for all cows. So we know each cow how much milk she gives in every milking, whether she's by a pedometer, whether she is an estrus, and if she has a mastitis by the conductivity of her milk, and it's all processed. And we also know how much each cow, in this system, we know how much each cow chews her cud every day. So it's a very good system. As you can see in the far is the hay shed, and there is the bull shed. And these are the small baby calves. Up to 1 week old. This is the shed of the young calves, steers and heifers, because we fatten the steers. The biggest problem is probably heat stress in Israel. We could have higher milk if we had less heat stress, but each farm takes care of it intensively. We have a rotary milking parlor floating on water, 36 positions. Right now this farm is milking twice a day. Usually we milk 3 times a day in Israel and also here. But at the moment we're milking twice a day. This whole milking parlor, of course, is floating on water. Here's where the milkers normally stand. This is the milking parlor, turning toward a typical cow shed. And here we can see the primary waste management small equipment for waste management, separating the solids from the liquids. Here's the feed center, the commodity barn, and the silage. Here we all feed in Israel a TMR, a typical high cow ration. All cows in Israel are Holstein, 100% Israeli Holstein, with a little bit of Israeli Holstein and Jersey crossbreeding, but only a small percentage. Everything is solar panels here. In Israel, the dairy branch is basically the only branch left that is a planned branch by the government. So the milk price for the farmer is decided by the government. And there's milk quotas. As I said, the milk quota now for the entire country is about 1.6 billion liters, or 1.6 million tons of milk.
Stephen, ask you to give us your views on what you see as some of the key challenges, etc., impacting on you and your farm.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I think the challenge is right now the prices of grain is extremely high. The prices of protein is extremely high. All the concentrates in Israel are imported because we have very little land, very crowded country, small country, crowded, not too much water, and very expensive water. So we're very dependent on importing grains and protein, and it's very expensive. And I would say the next challenge, which is maybe connected to that, is political. The government is always making reforms, trying to lower the price to the farmer, to lower the price to the consumer, and maybe within the next 2 or 3 years, they will stop the quota system. Maybe gradually, but to stop the quota system, stop the target price. And that's a real challenge for the farmers. And the farmers are now beginning to form cooperatives for the day, if it happens, when the government takes itself out of any planning of the dairy industry, they'll be ready, the farmers will be ready. I would say on a professional thing, what would stop us most from getting more milk, we have very good genetics, but I would say the thing that stops us most for getting more milk would be the heat stress. Israel, although we're in the middle of winter here in Israel, and it happens to be not far from where I live, is for the first time in a few years is a lot of snow on the ground. But in general, we have a long, hot summer. And of course, that's not helpful for high producing milking cows. So even though we have very good systems of fans and cooling, it's still a challenge for the milk and mostly for the pregnancy, for the fertilization. It's difficult to get cows pregnant here in the long summer and early autumn. So I would say that is maybe some of the biggest challenges. And I think maybe one of a great opportunity we have now would be our peace treaties with some 4 Arab nations, that we could definitely not only have cooperation with them politically and economically, but also maybe, hopefully, in the dairy industry.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. We might leave it there for now. There's a couple of questions in the box. One that we might just get you to clarify was, how's the government setting the price? Do you want to just give a quick?
Yeah, that's very simple. Once every 2 years, they make a survey. The government makes a survey of how much it costs to produce 1 liter of milk on the average. They take away, then they make that with no profit. There's no profit, but there is paying for the labor. So they make the price without they take away the least efficient farms. So what's left is the average of most of the farms, but without the least efficient. And the amount of money that it takes to produce a liter of milk, including everything, interests, investments, and so on, that becomes the price. Every 3 months, committee sits and makes slight changes in the milk price according to the changes in the price of the food, the price of labor, and the price of meat. So they make slight changes every 3 months, maybe half a penny more, half a penny less per liter, but every 2 years it's according to a survey of a random sample of typical farms.
Okay, thanks very much, Stephen. So we might leave your session now and follow up any questions in the general one. And now I'd like to move to our second panellist, Mark Billing from Australia. So Mark is with Craiglands Holstein, and it's a family-owned and operated dairy business located at Lepent in southwest Victoria. Mark and his family milk 450 Holstein cows, running a closed herd of registered Holsteins, and rear approximately 120 heifer calves as replacements each year. The Billing family have been milking cows at the Craiglands farm since 1928, but their tradition in dairy farming goes well back many years to Tasmania and to England. Mark's a 4th generation dairy farmer at his current property and farms in partnership with his wife Sam. They have 4 children. And Mark's other job, when he's not working on the farm, is as a volunteer firefighter. He's a group officer. Mark was able to get a little bit of help with his video. Luckily, he was forward planning, because we went into lockdown here in all of Victoria for 5 days, pretty soon after that. So Mark, I might hand over to you, and just remind anyone who is not muted to please mute yourself. So Mark, over to you. Thank you. Sorry, we'll show Mark's video now, Fatima, and then over to Mark. My apologies.
G'day. My name's Mark Billing, and I'm an Australian dairy farmer. We farmed here on this farm in southwest Victoria at a place called Colac, which is about 2 hours west of Melbourne. With the good season that we've had here, with good rains, an early autumn break, and good pasture covers across the season, we've had good pregnancy rates. So this year we plan to move forward in our numbers, so we'll be milking closer to 500 cows. We run a closed herd, so we're pretty reliant on our genetics. Part of what we do here is we use a lot of genomic testing on all of our animals, and we've done that now for about 4 generations of cattle. So our calving pattern's based on our grass growth curve. So for us, that's calvings May and June. So the bulk of our herd is calved down in about 9 weeks, so we just sneak into July. And generally, in an average sort of a season, we've got good grass cover by the time we get into June and move into the Australian winter. So our feeding system is based around pastures. So for us, that's ryegrass pastures. We use a lot of tetraploids and diploids in our system, and that seems to fit best for our seasons and also for our production system. We supplement those pastures at certain times of the year with grain, and that's generally wheat-based, and that can be as a crushed product or in a pellet form with minerals added. What we also do in the summer period is we grow summer crops. So that's generally brassicas, but we do grow some sorghum as well as grazing feed for the cows, and a little bit of lucerne, and if you're in America, that's alfalfa. So our current milking system is a twice-a-day system, and we milk in a rotary dairy. On that rotary, we've got a reasonable amount of technology. We've got milk meters, we measure the cows' individual milk production daily, also got conductivity monitoring within that milk as well to help us detect any mastitis cows. Our cows also all wear collars, and on those collars we have responders. Most of those responders have activity monitoring, and we can also do feed behaviour or grazing behaviour, and that can alert us to any grazing issues the cows have, which might be related to health issues. So environmentally, we're very conscious of our water use here in Australia, and particularly on a dryland farm. So all the water that we use in the dairy for yard washing, etc., is recycled. So our farm, from an employee point of view, is based around 2 full-time employees and a casual. And it seems as though that I'm the only one that doesn't get the holiday, but I'm here for most years and get a couple of weeks away every now and then. My wife Sam does all the administration for the farm, which these days seems to be increasing almost weekly with the compliance and everything else that we do, with all the auditing that we do for our milk company. So we sell our milk to a milk broker, and that milk broker then on-sells that milk to different companies, processing companies, and that can go into yogurt, cheese, whole milk, powders, etc. In most of Australia's milk export states, we're paid on a milk solid system. So it's fat plus protein minus volume. For 4 generations, dairy farming sustained our family. And that's gone through droughts, it's gone through downtimes, it's gone through price drops. And I'd like to think that I'm not the last generation here on our farm. But one thing's for sure, my grandfather, if he was here today, would not recognise this farm in one little bit. So we've had to move with the times. We've incorporated technology, we're incorporating new farming systems, and we're trying to make what we do the best we can do for us as a family and for our animals. So I hope I've imparted a bit of the knowledge that I have for our farm. I hope you've enjoyed looking around our farm. It's a great way to see how we do things here in Australia. So as I close, if there's any questions, I'd love to answer those, and everything's on the table. I'm quite happy to talk about any part of our business and how we do things. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. So we now might ask you to give us your thoughts on what you see as key challenges and opportunities for you. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Helen, and g'day everybody, and welcome to my spot in Australia. So, look, I think similar to Stephen, our challenges are around cost of production, but I think what's impacting us more now as a dryland grazing farm is climate change. I think the climate variability has giving us a unique set of challenges. Milk price obviously has a fair impact on our profitability, but climate in a grazing environment obviously has a much larger impact on our profitability. I think our cost of production, our inputs are off-farm inputs are mainly grain, as I said in the video. We use that to supplement our feed gaps. So if we have a late break in the autumn, we're reliant on grain. We are lucky in Australia that we have a very strong grain industry, but traditionally domestic grain prices in Australia are higher than export grain prices. So that's just an anomaly that we have in Australia. But having said that, it's still, when milk prices are even, we've still got a pretty good profitability when we're feeding grain. I think milk price is an interesting one, which I've touched on. As I mentioned in the video, we're paid on a milk solids basis. So when I talk about our production in our herd, I talk about milk solids. We don't talk about litres in Victoria that much. In the northern states of Australia, they're more of a domestic market and putting white milk in the supermarkets. We do this in Victoria, obviously, but Victoria's got a population of around 5 million. So, and Victoria produces the bulk of Australia's 8.2 billion litres. Of that 8.2 billion, roughly now half of that is exported. Domestic market over COVID has actually strengthened in Australia. I'm not sure that that's been a common theme across other countries, but sort of people stuck at home tend to have been turning towards more the high-end dairy products, which has been a good thing for our industry. So the other thing with our milk is there's no one in Victoria at the moment operating on milk quotas, so it's pretty much the processors have to deal with the seasonal fluctuations of milk production. In Australia, most farms in Victoria are grazing-based farms. We are seeing in northern Victoria, which relies on a lot of irrigation and the cost of water, they're moving more towards a cut and carry, so a TMR system. In southwest Victoria, where I am, that is a bit of a rarity. So that's pretty much a roundup. I think the challenges for dairying in Australia is probably not that much different to anywhere else in the world. So cost of production, water availability are probably some of the biggest items for us going forward. So Helen, I might just leave it at that now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. And there's a number of questions in the chat box, but I think that would take us the rest of the seminar to answer some of these about why cooperatives have failed. How do we determine the marketing and pricing of milk in Australia? So we might come back to those in the Q&As after we've heard from our other two speakers. So thanks very much, Mark, for giving us your views on the challenges and opportunities. And I'll pass on some of these questions to you. You might like to have a think about them later on. Our next panelist is Nathan Chittenden. And so Nate farms alongside his two brothers and his parents in Dutch Hollow in Shodak Landing in New York. He started with a small herd of 55 registered jerseys in 1976. The family has now grown their herd steadily through internal growth to a herd of over 800 today. And so the family is committed to the registered Jersey breed, as well as to their some of the public outreach has put them in the spotlight in the national dairy industry. After graduating in animal science at Cornell in 2000, Nate returned home to the family farm, where he married his wife Jill, and today they've got 3 children. In addition to managing the calves and young heifers, Nathan has also been active as a 4-H leader and past president and vice president of the local board of directors of the Cooperative Extension. Nathan's also served as president and vice president of the YC, his co-op Agrimark. Nate has used his ingenuity here and had a video that he had prepared for school groups that he does have on his farm. So he's cut that down to a few minutes to just give us a quick impression of his farm, and then he'll answer questions. So we might now show your video, Nate, and then have you talk after. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad you could make it here. So this is my family's farm. Dutch Hollow Farm is its name. Here on the farm, we have about 800 adult Jersey cows. This barn we're in right now, these cows actually don't get milked at all. They're on vacation. This is what we call a dry cow barn. Every single cow you see in this barn is pregnant and about to have a baby sometime in the next 3 weeks. We average 2 to 3 babies born every single day. This barn is located right next to our milking parlor. So this area is designed to give those cows lots of space to spread out and stay comfortable. And if we see one that's ready to have a baby, what we'll do is we can move her into the back. We have these special stalls in the back that are kind of like privacy rooms for them.
So here we are in the milking parlor at Dutch Hollow Farm. You can see that the cows have all come in. We like to have the parlor quiet and calm at all times because that's what keeps our cows calm so they can make their milk without having too much disruption. This is what we call a pedometer. This tag is attached on every single cow's leg. It communicates with an antenna so we can track all of the data that these cows have and make sure that we can, first of all, know how much milk they're making, but also know that our cows are doing well. If our cows don't feel well and they're not making good milk, we don't want to put that milk into our tank. Once she's had about a total of 60 seconds from the time I first touched her, that machine is going to be ready to go on. We use microfiber towels to clean off our cows instead of paper towels. So here we go. We're going to hit the button. Now this is just a gentle vacuum. Less than probably your vacuum cleaner at home, so it doesn't hurt the cow at all. So after we put the milking machine on, we should see the milk coming out right away. Now our cows here get milked 3 times a day. So by looking right up on here and pushing 2 buttons, I can tell you that the computer expects that she's going to make 16.2 pounds of milk this session, which is about 2 gallons. So she's probably making 6 gallons of milk a day. So once she makes less than a half a pound of milk in 30 seconds, the machine comes off all by itself. We're going to put on a special lotion that's going to protect her. Now, once again, that has iodine in it, which will kill any germs, but it's nice and slippery but sticky like a lotion, so it keeps her skin soft so it doesn't get brittle and hard. Once the rest of her friends are done milking, they'll all leave together and go back to the barn. So after the milk comes out of the cows and goes through the pipeline, it comes into here, which is our milk house. And inside this giant steel tank is all the milk coming out of the cows.
This is like our nursery. So when that baby calf is born, we got to feed her milk as soon as possible. This pen is more than enough for that calf to turn around and jump around and play, but it's also giving her her own private space, so she's never has to worry about being squished by somebody. So if we look down, we can see a couple buildings, and we see this big pile of something with tires on it. That is actually that haylage. Under the building there, you can see a big pile of stuff that's like a light yellow. That's the soybean meal. And that bin also has hay and cornmeal in it. Now we have beautiful big tractors. You can see all the equipment back there. We have bigger tractors that let us do more work easier.
Thanks very much, Nate. And this is a quick introduction to your farm. So we might now ask you just to give us your quick overview of what you see as some of the key challenges, apart from having to provide a video when you didn't have a lot of support. Thanks.
Yeah, just to hit on the things that might have been missed in there. I mean, those were videos that were all put together during some tours that we've done for school-age children across the country, both virtually and live. But we're milking around 750 cows going through the parlor now. They're averaging about 65 pounds per cow. Being Jerseys, that's probably up over 80 pounds energy corrected. They're about 5.5% fat right now and about 3.8% protein. We're in the Northeast United States, as you know, very diverse from West Coast to East Coast in the Midwest. How different the land base is. Here in the Northeast, we have no shortage of water, but we do not have the greatest land conditions like the breadbasket, the center of the United States. But we do grow about 90% of what our cows are eating are grown right there on the farm, heavy forages. Our biggest challenges is probably the fact that we do not have a unified industry. We, as Americans, we love our competition, I guess. So we're constantly competing with each other. Our co-ops you know, we have unity as an industry as far as through some of our organizations like the FARM program, the NMPF, where the cooperatives do provide a unified front to the public, to our customer base. But we still compete with each other, and in the United States right now, with the surplus of milk being produced, that competition generally results in who can get the lowest cost of production to stay in the business. That surplus of production makes us very reliant on trying to build our export markets, which is a challenge. Having our Jersey herd with high components, our farm has never had a problem finding a market for our milk with the amount of cheese and butter and powder producers, you know, plants here in the Northeast. We have plenty of areas for our milk to go. Just finding the right price for it. Price is very volatile here in the United States, which does make it hard. Here in the Northeast, as we're switching to as we're looking more in the climate and how to produce more renewable energy, our state's government is pushing a lot of solar projects, building solar, building wind, which might be great for overall energy production in the United States, but unfortunately for our farm specifically, we are in threat of losing about 300 acres to a solar field. 300 acres of our best farmland. So trying to work with our government to have them provide a little more common sense to what land base they're using to put renewable energy on. It makes no sense to take prime farmland and turn it into a solar field when there's plenty of less desirable land that could fill that need that cannot be used in agriculture. We have challenges with our labor, immigration laws. The United States relies heavily on our migrant population on agricultural jobs. And in the dairy industry, we have no program currently to help labor get here to work on a dairy farm year-round. It provides a lot of challenges to finding labor. We have 15 full-time employees on our farm between crops and milking the cows. Business succession. I am the third generation dairy farmer on our family's farm. The fourth generation is already back home on the farm, finishing college, and we have more people. I guess it's a nice problem to have. We have plenty of family that wants to return to our farm, but trying to make all the pieces fit. You know, we can't have 20 people be the owner managers with 3 employees. We need some people that need to understand there's a hierarchy and getting everybody to fit and work together while also providing them with a lifestyle that suits what they want going forward. But I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm pretty proud of the fact that each generation, everybody wants to come back to not just dairy farming, but here on our farm. And with that challenge in the industry right now, growing the dairy farm to fit more people is becoming a bigger and bigger challenge here in the Northeast. Our co-op had to institute a base program, not quite a full quota, but a heavy penalization if you went over the base production that you were allotted. We need to curtail the growth of the industry within our co-ops. The government is not going to do it for us. With the farmers themselves we have to regulate ourselves and curtail the growth of production in our regions in order to keep the price where we need it to be profitable. And
Thanks.
Can't think of anything else.
Thanks very much, Nate. That was great to get those insights from you. There is a question from you about effluent management, but we might come back and give you that question in general Q&As, give you a moment to think about it, just what your effluent management system is. We might now move to our last panelist, Apke Linden. It's from Germany. So Apke is married with 2 children, lives in East Frisia in the very north of Germany. Together with his brother, Hilko, his parents, 1 employee and 1 trainee, they manage a dairy farm with 225 dairy cows, 140 female young animals, and 185 hectares of farmland. Of this, 120 is grassland and 65 are arable, growing silage maize and cereals. The dairy cows currently milk about 10,500 kilograms of milk per year. And in summer part of the year, the cows graze outside day and night. They currently have a 75 kilowatt biogas plant being built to ferment the manure that's produced. Apke kindly did have a video of his farm, and as I said, it was with some German commentary, so he's kindly for language poor people like myself. We've turned the sound off, and Apke will talk over the video just to give us some of the stats on what's being said, and then we'll go to him answering some questions on the challenge. So Apke will start the video now.